Hello everyone, my name is Sugar Geek and welcome to my very first debunking video. Today I will be debunking the Bite of 83 theory from Five Nights at Freddy's. Personally, I've never actually liked this theory, but it's gained a lot of steam since MatPat from Game Theory is a believer of it and put it in his most recent FNAF video. So I'm going to completely debunk this theory. I'm going to do it in 4 ways. 1, by the fact that we've never heard of this event before. 2, I'm going to debunk the evidence that Team 83 or 83 theorists used to try to prove it. 3, by the lack of repercussions the Bite of 83 theory has when it comes to the company. And 4, I'm going to be showing all the evidence pointing to the event we see in FNAF 4 being the Bite of 87. Alright, so let's go to 1, the lack of evidence. This is an event we've never heard of before. There's just nothing in any of the other games that point to another bite or that another child was killed. There's just nothing. There's no hints, no anything. We only hear about one bite. I don't think it's our place to try to make up a new event because maybe we don't think it fits in what our preconceived ideas of what the Bite of 87 should have been. Now you might say, well, what about the MCI or the Missing Children incident or Save Them? You know, those are very similar events. It is our job to look at the evidence that the games provide. By comparing what we know about the Missing Children incident and the Save Them, we know it's not the same event. You know, that we know that the Missing Children incident, those children were stuffed in the suits. We know that the Save Them kids, we don't have any proof they were stuffed in any suits. We know that in FNAF 2, Phone Guy mentions a previous event that caused the restaurant to have a bad reputation, and we also know the animatronics smelled bad, which makes sense since we know that there were bodies stuffed into the suits. So when we look at all the evidence, we know that this is a separate event. But I will admit this is probably my weakest point here. So let's move on to the next one. I'm going to debunk the evidence that 83 theorists provide to try to prove that theory. One of them is Fredbear's Family Diner. Some say that this restaurant is a diner. Oh, I personally believe that it's a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Some people say that it's a restaurant called Fredbear and Friends. Whatever you might believe, there's one thing this restaurant is not. It is not the original Fredbear's Family Diner mentioned by Phone Guy in FNAF 2. Now, how do we know that? Well, we know that the diner only featured Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. That's how it's only been portrayed so far in the games and in the novel too. The restaurant we see in FNAF 4 has Freddy. Maybe you don't see an animatronic, but we do see merchandise of him. So, how can this be the original diner when we don't have any evidence that Freddy was actually there or any of the other characters? We also have the Pigtail Girl's statement about the animatronics coming to life at night and about them, killing other people. I don't think this girl's a prophet. She's obviously talking about the MCI. I mean, hearing what she says, she perfectly describes the Missing Children incident. Now, some people say that, oh, well, she's talking about the spring suits. Well, let's be serious here. We don't know the spring suits to come to life at night. We don't know the spring suits to stuff people into suits. We don't know about the spring suits trying to hide bodies and all that. This girl is talking about the MCI, which happened at a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza after the original location had closed. There is no way this location is the original diner, especially not in 1983. There's no way that that event would cause the original diner to close and then for the company to sell and then for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to be created and then have the MCI and then have that location close and then have the new toy animatronics be created and the new FNAF 2 location to be created in only 4 years. That is just way too close. There's just no reason for the original diner to be around in 1983. Now some say, well, the bite victim, his head was crushed and not bitten, which is true. When you look at the bite showed in FNAF 4, the kid's head is crushed. But he was still in Fredbear's mouth. It's still considered a bite. Now, some say that Phone Guy said the child is missing his frontal lobe, which really isn't true. He said that it's amazing the human body can survive without the frontal lobe. Now, without can mean literally without, physically being removed, but it also can mean non-functioning. Or, maybe Phone Guy's exaggerating a little. Because seriously, let's think about this. Do you really think an animatronic bit someone's face off? I mean, do you really think they bit down and removed part of their skull and then expect that person to live? Come on, there's no way Phone Guy meant that someone is literally walking around without a piece of their skull and a piece of their brain. They would be dead immediately. Now, what we see actually very accurately describes what Phone Guy said. Someone was bit, obviously in the head. Fredbear's endoskeleton teeth will be closer to where the frontal lobe is located on the head when you look at how he's situated in the mouth. And that area of the brain would have been crushed or badly damaged. And maybe to the point where it's not functioning as well as it should be. Or maybe he just meant the person had brain damage. Maybe he literally didn't even mean the frontal lobe wasn't working all that well. Because people will exaggerate things like that. Now, a lot of people point out that Fredbear wasn't free roaming when the bite happened, and that a free roaming animatronic bit a child or bit someone. Again, Phone Guy didn't say that. Phone Guy said the bite caused free roaming to stop. He did not say a free roaming animatronic bit someone. Now, yes, I will say that Fredbear wasn't walking around freely when the bite happened, but he was in free roaming mode. Spring suits are automatically in free roaming mode when they are in animatronic mode. Also know that the bite of 87 is one of the reasons the FNAF 2 location closed. We know that the toys were well known for having the ability to free roam. By Fredbear causing the bite of 87, that caused the location to close, the toys were scrapped, which meant, yes, the bite of 87 stopped free roaming because of that event. The toys no longer around, and they had to go back to using the old animatronics who were not able to free roam during the day. But the most important point is that a child died. Like, really understand this. A child was killed by the property of Fazbear Entertainment. Yes, his older brother put him in Fredbear's mouth. But you know what? That was an accident. The company now has to do something to prevent an accident like that from happening again. They have to prevent a child or another customer from being hurt by an animatronic. You can't do that if you have animatronics allowed to walk around wherever they want during the day. And honestly, if you read in the newspaper that an animatronic had killed a child, would you feel comfortable bringing your family or your children there, knowing that the animatronics can walk around wherever they want? Would you feel comfortable if Toy Bonnie was sitting right next to you? No, you wouldn't. It's just how things are. Sometimes there are repercussions that maybe don't seem reasonable, but they're there for a reason. They have to prevent another accident like that from happening again. So it makes sense that they would stop free roaming and only keep the animatronics on the show stage where they can be watched at all times. Because you can't prevent the customers from doing what they're going to do. You can't control them, but you can control the animatronics. So they have to do what they can to make the place seem safer. Another very big point that Team 83 brings up is the fact that the child in FNAF 4 dies, but Phone Guy says the bite of 87 victim lived. Now, there's a difference between living and surviving. Yes, the child did live. We know he was taken to a hospital. If we take the nights from FNAF 4 literally, he lived for about 6 days and then he died. So technically, Phone Guy wasn't wrong. the child did live. He probably was on some sort of life support system, especially because we know the older brother asks if he can hear him. That hints that the child's in a coma, which means he would be, there'd be something probably pumping his heart. Now, if the child were to stay on this life support system, he probably would have kept living. People can live for many years like that. But Phone Guy says the human body, he's surprised the human body can live without the frontal lobe. Which is interesting that he said that, because it kind of fits with the idea that maybe the child had so much brain damage that he was considered brain dead. And that, yes, he could have survived, his body could have survived on life support in the hospital, but once you're brain dead, they're going to pull the plug on you because you're no longer considered alive. So yes, he was correct. The human body can survive without the frontal lobe, or with a damaged frontal lobe. But Phone Guy wasn't wrong, because the child did not die instantly. He died days later. So again, that what we see in FNAF 4 does fit with what Phone Guy said. Now here, of course, is the biggest evidence the 83 theory has. It's the TV. That TV. Fredbear and Friends, 1983. You might say that every other time we see a year in Five Nights at Freddy's, that means that's the current year. Which actually isn't true. The only other time we actually see a year is in FNAF 2 with the paycheck of 1987. That is only one example out of 4. That is not good enough. We don't get a year for FNAF 1. The year is actually blocked off. We have to use the minimum wage calculator to get the year. And then in FNAF 3, again, we have to do some more math. We just hear, 30 years later, which obviously means that it happened in 2023. So that's not good enough. But again, we need more evidence. So why is this year 1983 important? Because Scott wouldn't put it in the game for no reason. He wouldn't just put in something like that just to mess around with us. So here's the importance of that TV in the year of 1983. That's the year the MCI happens. If you read the MCI newspapers, it says a cartoon mascot was used. Now you might say a cartoon can apply to the characters Freddy and the gang because they are cartoonish. But when I think of the word cartoon, the first thing that pops into my head is a TV show. One thing we don't have in FNAF, at least up to the point of FNAF 4, was a year for the MCI, which is probably the most important event in the games. Without that, none of the rest of the games would happen. We have a year for when FNAF 1 happened, we have a year for when FNAF 2 happened, we have a year for when FNAF 3 happened. But not the MCI, especially because they give us the exact date, June 26th. I think the connection here is actually kind of obvious. We have a cartoon mascot mentioned, and there's a mysterious year, and TVs are known for doing that. During opening or closing credits of cartoons or other TV shows, it will display the year that show was made. So just going up to your TV and turning it on and looking at whatever show comes on and seeing the year does not mean it's that current year. It's the year the show was aired. That show was aired in 1983, and we know that a cartoon mascot was used to lure the kids. The MCI happened June 26th, 1983. That is the importance of the TV. It is not the current year of FNAF 4. Now we also have Scott Cawthon's comment on MatPat's game theory. He had made a theory about how the child wouldn't be able to feel fear because he was missing his frontal lobe, and that if you have your frontal lobe missing, you can't feel fear. And no, his science was correct. Even though some people say the amygdala controls fear, that is correct. You still need the frontal lobe to process it and still to experience fear. Now on that theory video, Scott made a comment saying that, good job, but that he missed something that other people were pointing out in the comments. Now, yes, people were pointing out the bite of 83 theory, but people are also pointing out the possibility that we were playing as the older brother in the games and not as a crying child, which personally I don't believe, but I'll believe that before I believe the bite of 83. And what I think Scott was saying personally was that the comparisons were incorrect. MatPat's theory was based on people who've had their frontal lobes practically missing. One of them, the guy, his frontal lobe was stabbed out. Or people that have been into car accidents where their frontal lobe was non-functioning completely. But we see in the games that the child's head was crushed. His frontal lobe is still there. Yes, it would be damaged, but not gone. So he would still have the ability to process fear. And also at the same time, I don't think Scott's a brain surgeon who would do all that kind of research. This is a game about possessed animatronics. It's all not real. So I don't think it's appropriate to say that this can't be the bite of 87 because a child experiences fear either. So again, that comment Scott made is not a confirmation of the bite of 83 theory. I mean, yes, it is a strong push toward that theory, but again, it's not confirmation. There are other answers to that. Alright, let's move on to the third point. The lack of repercussions the bite of 83 has. Now we know that the missing children incident is what started the restaurants having night guards. Something bad happens, you have to try to prevent it. Children were killed at night, hire a night guard to watch the building. We have the spring lock failures. An employee most likely died, maybe he was only hurt, from a faulty spring suit. So they discontinue those spring suits and get new ones. We have the Save Them murders. The building went under investigation, and later on that building closed. Something happens from each event. But the bite of 83, there's nothing. You're telling me that a child would die from the property of Fazbear Entertainment, but nothing would happen afterwards? There has to be some sort of repercussion. Now you might say, oh, okay, Fredbear's gone. But that can't be it. Because it's not enough. Yes, whether it's the bite of 83 or bite of 87, the Fredbear animatronic was scrapped. But that they have to do something that's going to prevent that event from happening again. The bite of 87, we know that the animatronics are not allowed to walk around during the day. The bite of 83, we just don't know. If there was repercussion, it's not told. But again, it's also an event we never heard of before. But what makes no sense to me is that with the bite of 83 theory, you're basically saying that, okay, the restaurant, kid was bitten there, it closed or whatever, and then years later we have the FNAF 2 location with the new toy animatronics. Why in the world would they create Mangle? I mean, I understand you want to remake the animatronics, but you gave this one some pretty sharp teeth considering what happened only a few years earlier. And not only that, you actually let little kids come in and take it apart and put it back together and pull on all the parts of it. Really? Why? That is an accident waiting to happen. A child died because his brothers were playing around and playing a prank. And now you have this other animatronic where you're letting kids just touch it and pull it apart and everything. That makes no sense. The company would not allow that after having an event happen a few years ago, especially we're only talking 4 years prior. It's not like it's been 20 years. That just makes no sense. And you might say, oh, well, they could have put a person there to watch them. But that's just unreasonable because people have to go to the bathroom. Some days you might be short-staffed. It's, accidents happen, even with people watching. It just makes no sense that the company would make this animatronic and then allow children to pull it apart and put it back together after having a child die from children basically playing around and playing a prank. Alright, so here's the evidence for the bite of 87. Well, first major thing is that It's a bite. It's a bite. A child was bit on the head. I mean, what are the chances that that would happen twice? Really? But again, I know some people say it's not enough. We also have the Easter egg during night 1. It's Phone Guy's FNAF 1 Night 1 call. It's all garbled and backwards, but it is there. Now, I don't think this child literally heard this phone call because it is just ambiance noise when you hear it. It's ambiance that just happens to be that Night 1 call. But why put it in there? Unless it's to help, prove that it's the bite of 87. It has no reason to be there if it's the bite of 83. Because in this phone call is the first time we hear about the bite of 87. I just think it's just, pointing us toward the bite of 87. And also we see action figures of the toy animatronics. Now some people will say, oh, well, that's why they're called toy animatronics. They're based off of toys. The idea is cool and all, but you're making stuff up to try to prove the bite of 83 theory. Yes, they're called toy animatronics, but if you look at them, their body isn't furry like the old animatronics. They're smoother. They just look like toys. And in the game, they're actually not called toy animatronics. They're not. They're only called that in the extras menu. But Phone Guy doesn't say that these characters were based off of a popular toy line. He said that they were originally planning on using the old animatronics, but because they were ugly and smelly, they made the new ones. He mentioned nothing about them being based off of something else. It also makes more sense to base toys off of an actual thing, not the other way around. I mean, we do have cases of toys becoming TV shows or whatever, but Phone Guy doesn't give us that evidence, so we shouldn't be that keen to believe that the toy animatronics are actually based off of toys. But even more importantly is Mangle. Looking at the Mangle toy in the bedroom, it's not a toy of like Toy Foxy or Funtime Foxy. It's a toy of Mangle. It has a second endoskeleton head. You can see that it's obviously made to be pulled apart and put back together, just like the Mangle attraction. Now, if this was an action figure of Toy Foxy, this would be a different story. But look at it. Mangle only existed for a very short time in 1987 at the FNAF 2 location. Mangle wasn't planned to be a take-apart, put-back-together attraction. It only became that because little kids couldn't keep their hands to themselves. So obviously they would make a toy based on that, since it became a popular attraction. It makes no sense that this toy would already exist before the attraction exists. People have said it's not Mangle. It's a Foxy toy that was put in a washing machine, or a Foxy toy the kid broke. I've heard all kinds of theories about that. But again, let's be serious. It's pink like Mangle. It has a second head like Mangle. It's pulled apart like Mangle. It's obviously meant to be Mangle. Mangle only existed in 1987. Therefore, whatever we see in this game has to take place in 1987. And that's just the truth of the matter here. There's just too many things pointing to this being the bite of 87 to say that it's something else. Again, like I said earlier, it's not our place to come up with a new event. It is our place, though, to rethink what we know when new evidence is provided. What we see in FNAF 4 is absolutely the bite of 87. And I really hope Sister Location will help prove that. Because I know this theory video, or this debunking video, won't sway certain people. But whether or not you're an 83 theorist or 87 theorist, I really hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing some more debunking videos for some other games, hopefully in the future. And also, I'll probably do another one about FNAF. So if you like this video, please, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this, please subscribe. Thank you everyone, have a great day, and I will see you next time.